Here's the ocean from the old lighthouse parking lot. Still pretty big, pretty rough, pretty angry looking. Wind still blowing straight on shore. Up here in Buxton, I'm not going to get out. You can see the sand blow. It's the first casualty I've heard of from the storm. This is the road back to the lighthouse. This little dead water moccasin didn't fare so well. I don't know if he's been run over or what. He's dead. North end of Buxton. Hatteras Island Inn lost their sign. Let's see what the road looks like up here. Both high tides yesterday. There was ocean overwash here, and I'm sure there's sand. Yeah, there's sand on the road. It's not as bad as it has been in past storms, and not quite as bad as I thought it was going to be, actually. There still looks like there's some dunes over there. There's just sand that's blown up on the road. It's not washed the dunes out like it normally has. Highway 12 leaving Buxton going north towards Avon. Highway 12 through Avon. Looks like it still has water on it. Get out here and look at the ocean view. Look at the beach. As was expected, it looks like whole sections of the dune are gone here on Ocean View. Debris all out here on the road. Driveways, yards flooded, covered in sand. High tide's not for a few hours, but I'm sure at high tide there's water coming through probably most of these driveways. Some of the dune looks like it's held, surprisingly, since it was just rebuilt back in the spring from our winter storm, and there hadn't been a chance for any vegetation or anything to grow on it to help hold it. But certainly not all of it is held. See, there's no dune there behind that house. You can see the ocean right there. All behind these houses. These are all supposed to be people's yards. You can see the sand just piled up out here in front of the houses where it's not supposed to be. To give you a sense of what's going on, if you can hear, this is the wind still blowing. Sand blowing in our face. What the road looks like for over a mile anyway, between Avon and Buxton coming into the north end of Buxton. Not a lot of sand, but there's enough sand here that you can't see any lines. Just blowing sand. It's not sand that's washed over, it's just sand that's blown over off of those dunes right there. I don't know if you can pick it up in the video or not, but there's sand blowing. I'm sure you can probably hear it. that sand hitting the car like a sand blasting machine. This is Highway 12 coming into Buxton. Then here we are again at the motels in Buxton. This is in Frisco at the old Frisco pier site. This was a dune like that size right there all the way across here, and then this was a paved parking lot. And as you can see, the pavement's all torn up now. This was all paved all down through here, and all the dune back behind it. And this is the road coming in to the pier parking lot. It's all full of sand. And we're still a couple hours from the next high tide. As you can see, obviously the tide's pretty high here right now. Oceanfront saltwater pool, anyone? And I think they're going to have to call the gas man out to work on their gas tank. Here's the road coming in to Hatteras Village. This is Sunday the 16th. It's taken me this long to get down here since after the storm. They didn't open the road into Hatteras Village itself until late Friday evening, almost dark. It was getting really too dark to take any good video, and then I worked yesterday, so it was today before I can get down here. But this is, if anyone's familiar with this area, this is the walkover area, the Sandy Bay parking lot. This is about where it starts. I drove through this Thursday during the first really bad high tide that flooded us in an ambulance, and there'll be a story about that in a different video. But this is where it started, right here. It started coming over these dunes, through these dunes, over that walkway right there that we just passed. You could see it when you tried to drive through here, and then obviously you can see the sand piled up. Like I said, this is coming into Hatteras Village. Several of these dunes had breach areas in them. I know Thursday around lunchtime they did, and I'm sure Thursday night's high tide and then Friday morning's high tide messed them up as well. They look like they held up fairly well though. Obviously all those parts up there that still have the COs growing on them, those part of the dunes held up. A lot of the breaches were just small breaches that came through in different areas. So the whole dune line isn't destroyed like I thought maybe it was going to be, and I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. But they did have as you can see, they had a lot of sand they had to get up off this part of the road to be able to open it up. And then coming in down here, this is where the worst of it was. There was a pretty major hole down here, and like I said, I'll tell you about that in a different story about almost losing an ambulance trying to get it through here. And there's still water on the road. This is salt water still from the overwash that day. And it's been that way ever since. You're approaching the Hatteras Village. This area right here I know was really bad, trying to get through it. somewhere about in here, I was up to the top of the hood in the ambulance, and then there was a major breach right through here. I think we'll show it here in a second, where the water was just pouring through. The best picture I had in my head when I saw it was what it looks like when they open the emergency release on a dam. And they open those emergency gates and the water just pours out through those emergency gates. Right here, this whole section of dune right here was completely breached. You can see by the way they piled it back up. You could see straight through to the ocean there, as if there was nothing there at all. And water's probably 6 or 8 inches deep at least, coming in here right now still. So we got really lucky that may not have taken a lot more high tides or much more surge than what it did to really mess us up there. So all right, I'll get into the village and show you around. Hatteras Sands Campground had some damage to their sign. There's a little bit of flooding down here. This is rainwater here. Alright, down here at the Hatteras Ferry Docks, they had a construction trailer sitting right there on those cinder blocks. And it's now sitting right there. I guess it wasn't strapped down. No, there's anchors. I see little anchors right there with straps going to them. So they did have it strapped down, but they still lost that trailer. Like I said, it was sitting right here, sitting right there on those cinder blocks. There's the septic tank for it right there. And no hurricane is complete without at least one porta potty blowing over. This is Teach's Lair Marina down here in Hatteras. And when the storm comes, a lot of boats will leave. That's why there are some empty slips. They'll take them and try to get them inland somewhere. But the ones that stay, they tie them down really well, extra lines. They'll take their antennas off, take their outriggers off. Those big tall poles sticking off of some of those that they've already got them back on. That's what they spread out and use when they're fishing. But that's what they'll do. They'll just secure them in place as best they can. You can see some of these guys have been back down here and already got their boats put back together, and some of them haven't. Some of them may have evacuated. They just reopened the island yesterday afternoon to residents, and visitors are actually allowed on today, right now actually. We'll start seeing traffic down here anytime because it's been open almost an hour, and that's about how long it takes to get down here. So, but you can see, like I said, some of these boats have not been put back together yet since the hurricane. There's the outriggers probably to this boat right here, waiting to be put back on. Some of the guys that have evacuated, that went inland North Carolina, are having problems getting back because I know 95 through about half of North Carolina has been closed due to flooding, and a lot of the other main highways have been closed due to flooding. I don't know how well it'll show up. Yeah, if there's boats and vehicles, people will find the highest ground that they can to park their stuff. This is just an open lot. You can see people drive their car up in crazy places, but people will go for the highest ground they can to park their stuff, and there isn't a whole lot of high ground down here. So usually the best spots will fill up quick if you don't get your car into them. Hatteras Harbor Marina looks about the same as Teach's Lair did. Some of the boats have been put back together, some of them haven't. Their antenna mast for the marina broke. That's the VHF radio that the marina uses to communicate with their boats when they're out. Most people have not brought their boats back yet. Some boats just get moved out of these slips. They'll move them like across the way over there. That's actually, if you saw my commercial Spanish mackerel fishing, that's actually the boat right there that I fish on. And that got moved from well down the creek into a marina up, or into a slip up here that's behind that house and has better pylons than where we normally keep it, and we could face it bow into the what was going to be the worst of the wind right there. Here's the surf down in Hatteras. It's gotten a lot smaller. It's still pretty rough, still pretty windy. Still that same southeast, east-southeast wind that we've had since the hurricane started, pretty much. You can see the beach down here in Hatteras. It's had a lot of erosion. Not a whole lot of beach left down here. Still pretty rough, still pretty windy. It's crazy to think. I looked at the radar this morning, pulled my weather app and looked at the radar this morning. And even on the local radar, you can still see hurricane, or you can still see a storm. You know, you can still see the circulation and the rain and rain bands on the radar. It's crazy that it's been this many days now since the hurricane made landfall, and we're still seeing the storm on radar. It's just so unusual to have a storm hang around like that. Usually all that circulation and stuff has moved on by now. So that's the end of Hatteras. This is going back out again. That's the end of Hatteras Village Tour, and that's the end of the video. We got really, really lucky. If you've watched any of the news from down south, down east of us, New Bern, Wilmington, Morehead City, all of those places down there, that's the kind of damage and destruction, possibly even worse than that, that we would have been looking at here had this thing come directly at us and made landfall here on Hatteras Island. This would have been a completely different landscape down here than what we know and any of you might know that have been here. So we got lucky, we dodged one. Thanks everybody for their prayers and well wishes. We really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the love you guys have showed me on my channel and on my videos. I really do appreciate that as well. So thanks for watching. I'll keep getting videos out there if you guys keep watching them. That's the promise I'll make to you. All right guys, thanks again. God bless.